Have you ever stopped to think about the invisible tricks your mind is playing on you? Like right now? Every single day, your brain is deploying this secret arsenal of strategies to shield you from stress and anxiety. And most of the time, you don't even have a clue it's happening. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at these mental maneuvers head on.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start by meeting your mind's invisible army. Then we'll get into the tricky stuff, the reality benders, and what happens with misdirected feelings. But don't worry, we'll then move on to the healthy upgrades before we wrap up with how you can start choosing your mental filter. Let's get into it. So I want you to picture your mind like a fortress. And every day it's under siege from, well, life. Stress, bad news, fear, you name it. To defend itself, your brain calls up an invisible army. And these soldiers, they're your defense mechanisms, your mind's first responders in any kind of emotional firefight.
So what exactly are they? Well, the concept comes to us from Sigmund and Anna Freud, and they define them as unconscious mental processes. Now that word right there, unconscious, is everything. It means these things kick in automatically without you even thinking about it. They bend and reshape a threatening reality into something a little bit easier to swallow, all to keep your anxiety down.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Not all of these defenses are made equal, not by a long shot. A huge, decades-long Harvard study by George Violent found this incredible link between the kind of defenses we tend to use and, well, how our lives turn out. You can see it right here. People who mostly used mature defenses, they reported way higher life satisfaction. But those who leaned on more primitive ones, they were way more likely to struggle with anxiety and have problems in the relationships. Pretty telling, right?
Okay, so let's jump into our first group of defenses. I like to call these the reality benders. And they do exactly what it sounds like. They work by creating this buffer between you and some painful truth, essentially distorting what's actually happening so you feel a little bit safer. First up, we've got the big one, denial. This is probably the most basic defense mechanism of them all. It's when your mind just says no. It flat out refuses to accept a reality that's too painful to handle. You know, like when someone gets a really serious medical diagnosis and their immediate reaction is, nope, that can't be right. The doctor's made a mistake. That's denial putting up a shield.
Now, here's the deal with denial. In the short term, it can be a really useful shock absorber. But the huge risk is that it keeps you from actually dealing with the problem. The fix isn't to just rip the Band-Aid off. It's more about a gradual process, slowly letting reality in, armed with good, solid information, and most importantly, with support from people you really trust.
Next, we have projection. And this one is sneaky. This is when you take a feeling you have that you're not comfortable with, maybe it's anger or insecurity or jealousy, and instead of owning it, you pin it on someone else. A classic example is a deeply jealous person who's constantly accusing all of their friends of being jealous of them. They're literally projecting their own feelings outward. You can see how this would just be a disaster for your relationships, right? It creates this endless cycle of blame and confusion. The fix is, well, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's about developing the self-awareness to pause before you judge someone else and ask yourself one really tough question. Hold on a second. Is it possible that this feeling I'm seeing in them is actually mine? And our third reality bender is rationalization, the grandmaster of making excuses. Oh, we're all so good at this one. It's when your mind cooks up a perfectly logical, totally plausible sounding reason for something to hide the real, more painful reason. You know, you don't get the job, and instead of thinking, maybe I wasn't prepared enough, you tell yourself, I don't want that job anyway. I'm too good for that company. The real danger with rationalizing everything is that you never grow. I mean, if nothing is ever your fault, how can you ever learn from your mistakes? The fix requires a little bit of what you might call radical honesty. Try just being real with yourself. Maybe even write down the uncomfortable reasons why something happened. It's not about beating yourself up, not at all. It's about opening yourself up to feedback so you can actually get better. Okay, so our next group of defenses works a little differently. These guys don't so much distort reality as they misdirect our feelings. This is what happens when you feel something really powerful, but you can't express it toward the person or thing that's actually causing it. So your mind finds a different, safer target to unload on.
And that brings us to displacement. I think we've all seen this, and let's be honest, we've probably all done it. You have a brutal day at work. Your boss drives you crazy. But you can't yell at your boss, right? You'd get fired. So you bottle it all up. You go home and you snap at your partner or yell at your kids over something tiny. You've displaced that anger from a threatening target, your boss, onto a safer one.
And the huge, tragic risk here is that you end up hurting the people you care about the most, the very people who are supposed to be your safe harbor. So the fix is all about creating a buffer. Before you walk in that door at home, find a healthy way to let that pressure out. Go for a hard run, blast some music in the car, scribble it all down in a journal. Anything to vent that steam before you interact with the people you love.
All right, next up, overcompensation. This happens when you feel really insecure or weak in one area of your life, so you go to a wild extreme in the opposite direction to cover it up. Think about that person you know who just never stops bragging, constantly talking about how great they are. A lot of the time, that's overcompensation, a mask to hide a deep-down lack of confidence. The thing is, keeping up that kind of act is completely exhausting. And over time, you can even lose touch with who you really are underneath it all. The healthier path it's the harder path, is to turn inward. Instead of building this giant flashy wall to hide a weakness, try to actually acknowledge it and then take small, real steps to work on it. That's where true, lasting confidence comes from. Okay, we've looked at the defenses that bend reality and misdirect our feelings. Now we get to the really good stuff, the healthy upgrades. These are the mature defenses that Harvard research we talked about linked to happier, more fulfilling lives. These don't deny reality, they help you work with it. And first on our list of healthy upgrades is humor, a true superpower. This is the ability to find the lightheartedness or the irony in a tough spot. It doesn't mean you're not taking the situation seriously, it just lets you pop the tension balloon and get a bit of perspective. Like, if you mess up in a big meeting and can say, well, I guess my brain decided to take its coffee break a little early.
It can change the whole vibe in an instant.
But, and this is a really important but, there is a huge difference between healthy humor and using sarcasm or mockery as a weapon. The risk is when your jokes are actually just a way to put other people down. That's not a defense, that's an attack. So the fix is simple. Keep it light. And if you're going to poke fun at anyone, make it yourself. Keep it kind. And that brings us to what a lot of psychologists consider the absolute peak of defense mechanisms, sublimation. Seriously, this is like mental alchemy. It is the amazing art of taking raw, messy, negative energy, like anger, grief, or frustration, and channeling it into something positive and productive. And this is why sublimation is the ultimate goal. It doesn't just put a Band-Aid on a problem, it transforms the problem into fuel. That angry energy becomes an intense workout. That heartbreak becomes a powerful song or a beautiful painting. That anxiety gets channeled into a meticulously planned project. You're not just coping, you're creating. It is, without a doubt, the most mature and constructive upgrade for your mind. So, we've taken this whole journey through the mind's invisible army, from the ones that distort reality to the ones that build us up. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It really boils down to one simple, powerful word: awareness. The goal is never going to be to get rid of these defenses. They're just part of being human. The goal is to start noticing them. I think this is the perfect way to look at it. Think of your defense mechanisms like their Instagram filters. Some of them, like humor or sublimation, kind of enhance reality. They bring out the good parts, add a little warmth. But others, like denial or projection, they totally distort the picture, making it look like something it's not. The real power isn't in deleting all the filters, it's in knowing which one you're using and why. Because ultimately, when you become aware of these automatic, unconscious processes, you get to make a choice. You can shift from being a passenger in your own head to being the one in the driver's seat. You control your mind. It doesn't have to control you. So the question I'll leave you with is this: which filter are you going to choose?